on DAF Mendel Amud Aleph, about 8 lines down. So, first word in line, Aryai bar Avin, Rav Chananya bar Avin, Tanu Chumais. They were learning Chumais together. Okay, Rabba by the yeshiva of Rabba. So, Paga behu Rabba bar Masna bumped into them. He met them. Amalahu, he said to them, Maya misu b'chumos de be'mar. So, Rabba is such a great yeshiva. Much I've told you a chiddush in chumos. So, Amalei, they said to him, Umay kashalach. Okay, ask away. What do you need? What do you need to know? So, Amalahu, he said to them, Tanan, we learned it in a Mishnah, Shesile chumais. There are plants of chumais, shenitma'u, that became Tame, Ushasolon, and you replanted them. The halacha is anything that's connected to the ground cannot be Mekabel Tumah. So long as it's growing, it's not Mekabel Tumah. So they became detached, and then they became Tame, and then you replanted them. Okay. Also keep in mind, it cannot become Truma when it's connected to the ground either. So what happened was you cut them, you made them Truma, they became Tame, and then you replanted them. So, and
what is their condition once they're harvested again?
Right. So the halach is also something that's connected to the ground, Islamic Kabul Tuma, and not only that, when you replant it, it loses its Tuma, and which the Gemara will now discuss. So we say it's taharin milatame. They're now tahar from being metame anything else. V'asurin milachol. However, you cannot eat them, and the Maram takes out the word bichuma because, in fact, the Gemara will discuss how is it also to eat it, or who is also. So v'chimi achar de taharin. Once we say they're tahar militame from giving a tuma to anything else. Why is it also to eat? They said to him, so this is what Rabba said. Asurin lezarin. What does it mean? It's asur. It's asur to zarin. And right. The reason is even though it's tahar, true, it's tahar, but it's still truma. It didn't lose its shame truma when you replanted it, and therefore it's asur to it for a zar to eat. But the kohen could eat it. So we asked them. Rabba bar Masna asked them back. What's the chiddush? Gedalia truma that Gedalia truma is truma. That's something that truma which was planted and it grew. It remains truma. That's not a chiddush. Tanina, we learned it already once in a Mishnah. Gedalia truma. It's a beferish Mishnah in Chumais. Okay. If you're going to say gedulin, that the chiddush is that even if this plant grew another stalk, then that is also truma. Umay kamashmalan. Again, what's the chiddush? Bedavar she'ein zarakala. If it's speaking about something which the seed does not waste away, the original plant is still there. The Rush gives the example like onions. The onion is still there; it just grows out of it. So hanamitinina, we learned that in the Mishnah too. Hatevel gidulav mutarin bedavar she'zarakala. Tevel, which you replanted it, and if the seed is no longer around, the original plant is no longer around, so what it grows is mutter, meaning it doesn't keep its original name of tevel. And in fact, by truma, Rashi says is actually a chumrah derabanan, that it retains its truma status. Avol bedavar she'ein zarakala, however, by a plant where the seed wastes away, it's gone. So afilu gedulin asurin ba'achila, even what grows out of it, not only the original stock, what increases on it, but even a new stock which grows out of that is asur to eat. So you don't need this Mishnah to teach us this chiddush. Ishtiku, they were quiet. They didn't have an answer. So Amrulay, so they said back to him, Midish mi'alach beha. Did you hear any explanation to this Mishnah? Amelahu, he said to them, yes, Hachi Amar Rav Sheshes. This is what Rav Sheshes said. My asurin lokayhanim. What does it mean asurin in this Mishnah of truma tame that you replanted? That means it's asur for kayhanim. Hayil v'ifsilu lehu behesach hadas. Since there became possible with hesach hadas, the halach is by truma. It says as mishmeres truma isai, you have to guard the truma. Yeah, and if you didn't guard the truma, so you're not allowed to eat it. Becomes possible, and the Gemara will discuss why. So
this is after it was harvested.
Yeah, after it was made truma.
Is it asur for everyone else as well?
Yeah, for sure.
Or just the Kohen?
I mean, only Kohen could eat truma. So
It's no longer truma.
no, it's still truma, but it's puzzle. Yeah.
So they harvested the truma that was planted,
Yeah, and then they
didn't watch it after it was harvested.
right.
This is the truma that
Second generation.
This is the replanted truma that you harvested.
Yeah, in general, actually. So, yeah, the halacha is by if you didn't guard truma, so then a kohen's not allowed to eat it. In fact, no one's allowed to eat it. So what happened over here was that the planted truma that it became tummy. So once it became tummy, you stopped watching it because you figured it's tummy already. So you don't have to guard it. So hanicha leman amar hezer chadas pasol psul guf, that hezer chadas is a psul guf, which havi so it works out very well because then the psul does not go off when you replant it, and that's why it's aser. Elo leman amar hezer chadas psul tuma havi, that if according to the man amar that says that if you don't watch truma, it's possible because it might have become tameh. So so you can't say that in this case because here you replanted it anyway, even though it was vaday tameh, you replanted it, so it became tameh tar again. So that can't be the pshat in this case. So the itmar, as it was said, where was this machlekes said? So hezer chadas Rabbi Yochanan Amar Psul Tuma Havi is possible because it might have been Mekabel Tuma. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Amar Psul Haguf Havi, it's a Psul Haguf. It's intrinsic Tuma, intrinsic Psul from the learned out of the pasuk Es Mishmeres Trumaisai, but it has nothing to do with Tuma, and therefore when you replant it, it does not become available to eat, even for Kohanim. And therefore, you'd be right to. Therefore, Rav Sheshes works out according to Reish Lakish that's why it's also for Kohanim. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, it will be a question. So, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Psul Tuma Havi, and so what's? Yeah, it's a Psul Tuma. She'im Yavi Eliyahu V'Tarena. If Eliyahu Navi comes and says it's tahar, Shaimin, we listen to him because it's a. The reason why it's possible is because it's a suffix. If it became tummy or not. So if Eliyahu Navi comes and says it didn't, so then it's tar. Okay, so we listen to him. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says psul haguf havi, it's psul haguf. She'im yavi Eliyahu v'tarena. If Eliyahu comes along and tells us it didn't touch anything which was tummy, ain't shamin lay, so we don't listen to him because there was hezek hadas involved, which is a psul which stays with it.
Yeah, but okay. The hezek hadas is because we're in doubt, no?
That's the machlekes. That's the machlekes. That's just it. So Rabbi Yochanan says it's because it's a doubt of tuma. Reish Lakish says no, it's possible by itself. That hezek hadas is in itself a reason to make it possible.
So as soon as a person gives it inattention, it automatically becomes puzzle.
Yes,
and it's not. But you would think the reason why is because the person this is doubtful whether it was or not. But
it's true. In fact, but that's the machlekes in the Gemara over here. Rabbi Yochanan says it's because you might have become tamei. Reish Lakish though says it's because we have a drush in the pasuk. It says as mishmeres truma, so you have to guard here the truma.
The fact you didn't guard it doesn't matter anymore. Never mind what Kodesh Baruch Hu's reason is. That's the reason.
It's a new type of psul.
Okay.
Nothing to do with tuma.
Is Reish Lakish indicating that Yaakov will not know the halach?
No, he's just saying that even if he just says
it's not because of doubt.
He's echoing Rav Yochanan here. Rav Yochanan says even if Hanavi comes and tells us that it didn't touch anything that was tummy, so Rav Yochanan says it's tar. Reish Lakish says no. Even if he comes and tells us that no tummy touched it, it will still be tummy. I mean, not tummy. It will still be puzzle.
Once he didn't watch it, it becomes puzzle.
Aryai would agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. He's just saying he won't be able to come along and make it tar. Yeah. Okay, so. Fine. Rav Yochanan asked a question from to Reish Lakish from the Raize. Rabbi Shmuel ben Naisha, Rabbi Yochanan ben Rivke, Omer. Lul Kotan Haya Bein Kevesh Le Mizbeach B'Marave Shal Kevesh. The Mizbeach faced north-south, and there was a small hole.
Between the ramp and the
Mizbeach. Yeah, there's a small hole in the ground.
There's a space. It wasn't continuous, the ramp and the Mizbeach.
Yeah.
You could go straight down.
Yes. No. So in fact, the ramp met at a corner where the Mizbeach was, suppose, like over here, and the ramp went down like that this way, and so the ramp wasn't flush with the side of the Mizbeach. Right. So there was a little corner over there, and Rashi says in the floor there was a bit of a hole by the corner. So it was in the the Mizbeach faced north south, and in the corner on the western on the west side of it, so there was by the ramp and the Mizbeach there was a small hole. Okay. Fine. Shesham hayuzarkim psulei chatas ha'if uteubar tsurasan v'yotzin lebeis hashreifa. There they would throw a psul chatas, any chatas ha'if which became pasul, and they would leave it there until it stayed overnight. It's called uber tsurasan. Literally, it means the shape has changed, but it means it became noisar. Meaning, if you leave korbanos overnight, so then what happens is in the morning you have to burn it. You're not able to eat it. You can't finish the avodah. Okay, so and then you go and you burn it. So if it works out very well if you say that hesach das is a psul tuma. That's why you need ibur tzura. So Rashi explains like this: the case over here has to be speaking about where there's not a full psul. Because if it was a full psul, you just burn it right away. There's no issue. You don't have to make it nicer. So rather, we must be speaking about it's a psul of hezach hadas, like Rav Yechon says, like I'm saying, that it's only a suffix tuma, and therefore you have to wait overnight to make sure it's really puzzled in order to burn it. Because if it's not, because if it didn't touch something which was tummy, then you're not allowed to burn it. It's a bizarre to catch him. So you have to wait till the morning, and then it will for sure be puzzle, and then because of nicer, and then you can burn it. Fine. So psul tuma habi. If you're going to say hezach das is a psul tuma, mishum hachi by ibur, that's why you have to leave it overnight. Shema yavoy Eliyahu v'tarena, because maybe Eliyahu will come, and after you burn it, and it'll say it was tahar, and it'll come out that you really had no right to burn it. If it's a real psul haguf, why do you need to leave it overnight to make it nicer? Vatanan or Vatanya, we learned in the Raize, is that klal kol shepsulai begufai yisarif miyad. You burn it right away. So if it's a real psul haguf, you burn it. And bedamu bebalim, if it's a psul and dam, suppose the blood spilled, or bebalim, or suppose a korban pesach whose owners became tummy, they can't eat it. So to uber tzurasan v'yotzein lebeis hashreifa. So then we say the halacha, since the korban is really a good korban, it's just there's a psul coming from somewhere else, either because of the blood or the owners, which makes it they can't eat the meat. So there you have, but the meat itself was shechted properly. It was all the avodah was done properly. Except for the blood. So then you have to wait for the meat to become puzzled too. You wait overnight, it becomes nicer, and then and then you take it to a place where they burnt it. Okay, but we see that any psul haguf, any real psul, you just burn it right away. So if hezach hadas is a real psul, so then there's no psul possible where you would leave it overnight. So Amar Le Haitana Tana Devei Rabbi Bar Avuahu. Rish Lakish answered, no. This Tana is the Tana Devei Rabbi Bar Avuahu. The Amar Afilu Pigol Ton Ibur Tzura. Even Pigol, even a real Isser, requires you to leave it overnight to change the shape, literally, and to make it nicer. And it's a drasha in.
Change the
doesn't know where it is.
No, it's meaning it's in a few places actually. No, but Rashi says he doesn't know where the main place for it was.
The Ivor Tzura means you change the shape or something.
Yeah, it means you keep it overnight and then it becomes nicer. Yeah.
Previously, Rashi said that it loses some of its moisture, so.
Okay. I mean, that's physically what happens, but
It's a change in appearance, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't see moisture.
The Gemara learns out from here, actually, about Noshin Tam Lefgam, if it stays overnight. Okay, but...
changes a little the looks.
Yeah.
Okay.
It becomes nicer, right? So, yeah, and it's a Josh and Psukim that... Rabbi Barvu has a Josh and Psukim that every psul needs Ibor Tzura, has to keep it overnight and then you burn it. Okay, so Esavei, Virchan asked another question. Different brisa. Nitma ay shenifsal habasar ay shiatzachus lekloim, if it became tamei, a korban became tamei or apostle, or the basar became apostle, or you took it outside the kloim. The halacha is that any kachim you have to keep inside the zor. You can't leave out. You can't leave the
Quarter.
Inside the chaser. Yeah, you can't take it outside. Otherwise, it becomes apostle. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Yizraik, still you do zrika on the blood. Rabbi Yeshua Omer La Yizraik, you do not sprinkle the blood. It might Rabbi Yeshua Shim Zarak Hurtza, that if you sprinkle the blood, the halacha is it sits as miras. It sits, brings like a kapara, and makes the blood as it were wanted by Hashem. So my nifsal or la behezach hadas aren't we speaking about a psul of hezach hadas? So Rashi explains. How do we know? Because if it was a real psul, suppose Speigle, for example, so then the blood would also become puzzle, and then everyone would agree you don't. Then even Rabbi Yeshua would agree you do not. Even Rabbi Eliezer would agree you do not sprinkle the blood, because then the entire korban is invalidated and you cannot finish the avodah. Okay, so which psul are we speaking about? It must be a psul of hesach hadas. So iyamit bishlama psulei tuma havi. It works out very well if you say it's a psul tuma. It's a suffix if it became tummy or not. Hainu demishkachas la demiratzi tzitz. Then it will be possible that the tzitz will be miratzi. That tzitz will, as it were, appease the blood and allow it to be sprinkled. Ela iyamit psula guf havi. If it's a psula guf, amai hortza. Why is it miratza? Because we know the halacha is that a tzitz is only miratza for a tuma or a suffix tuma, but not for any psula guf. So whenever you see the expression hatzitz miratze, it's referring to tuma. Okay, so Gemara says my nifsal. So Reish Lakish will answer like this: my nifsal. What does it mean nifsal? Nifsal b'tvul yaim. It touched a tivul yaim and it became a puzzle. And the reason why it says nifsal, as we had in the first parak, is because the difference between nifsal and nitma is that nifsal, it's puzzle but doesn't make anything else tummy. Nitma means it's tummy and makes something else tummy too. It has the power to make something else tummy. But something which touched a tvul yaim, a kachim which touched a tvul yaim, does not have the power to make anything else.
Isn't there a possibility that puzzle could become good again or not?
No.
No, it's puzzle. It's already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Fine. So, but that's just why there's a difference in expressions between nifsal and nitma. So Gemara says, "Yihachi hainu tame." If so, that's tame, meaning even though there is a difference between nifsal and nitma, but once we say nitma, you don't have to say nifsal. So Gemara says, "Trei gavni nit tame." It's two different types of tuma, but in essence, it means the same thing. Okay. Fine. So now we continue. Kisalik Ravin Amra Lishmaite Kamei Rav Yirmiyah. When Ravin went up to Eretz Yisrael, he said Rav Shesh's memra in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Vamar, he said, Bavloi Tivshai, foolish one from Bavel. Mishum de Yasvi Be'ara de Chashecha, since they're sitting in a dark land, it's in a valley. Amrison Shmaitza de Mechashchu, he says something which is dark. Rashi explains that if you find something which he doesn't know the reason for, he makes up his own reason. So, okay. So, Loi Shemi Alechu Had Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, he didn't hear this that which Rav Shimon ben Lakish said, Mishmei de Rabbi Yoshia. Mehachag shenitmu. So on Sukkot, every morning they would bring a Nisuch Hamayim and they poured it on the Mizbeach when they brought the Talmud. So on Shabbos, what they would do is they would draw the water Erev Shabbos, and they would pour it on the Mizbeach on Shabbos. Now, what happened if it became Tameh? So you can't draw water. You can't draw more water on Shabbos. They drew it from outside the Beis Hamikdash. And even though there was a water source in the Beis Hamikdash itself, it was a big tircha. So what they do? So Me'achag Shenit Mu'u. It was a gigantic wheel, and we actually had in the end of Erevin. That is one of the things that they.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't like a little
No. Yeah. So me'achag shenitmu hashikon ve'achar kach hektishan tayin. So the waters of the chag that became tameh. So what they did is something called hashaka, which is they bring it in contact, literally kissing. Yeah, it means they put it in contact with the mikvah, and then it becomes tar. Similar to our case of Zriya, where you replanted Tamei Truma. So, and that's going to be the comparison. So, if they did this Hashaka V'achaka Haktish, and then they were Makdishet to Hirin, it becomes Tar. Haktishan, if first, however, they made it Kodesh, V'achar Kach, mean they first put it into a Kli, or they designated it V'achar Kach Hashikan, and then they did hashaka. Tameim, they remain tamei. So mechdi, let us see. Zriya ninu, it's zriya. This is the same thing as zriya. Mali hashikan, what's the difference? Hashaka v'achaka hektishan. Umali hektishan v'achaka hashikan. What difference does it make in the order? Either way, it becomes tar. Alma, we see ein zriya lehektish. We see ein zriya lehektish, that there's the Chum made a chumra by hektish, that once it became tameh, you can't pull any tricks and make it tar again, and it remains possible. Hachanami ein zriya lechuma. Here too, also the reason by us why you cannot eat the chuma is because we have it make the chachamim make a chumra by chuma that you cannot make it tar again. And even though deraisa it is tahar, and in fact that's why it doesn't make anything else tameh, but still the Chum were machmer and said you cannot eat it, and that's the reason why you cannot eat it over here. A kohen can't eat it because it's still possible, and a zar can't eat it because it's truma. Fine. So Yosef Rav Dimi v'kamer lo lahashmaita. Rav Dimi was sitting. He was saying this. He was saying over this memra. Amar le'Abai. Abai said to him, "Hiktishan bechli kamar." Was this said when it was put into a kli sheres that made it kadosh? Aval bepeh lo avur ban marla. But do we say that if you did it by mouth, if you designated it to be kadosh for the me'achag, then the Chum will not put on you this extra stringency? Ital, or do we say bepenami avur ban mala? By mouth also, the very fact that it becomes kadosh, it has has a name of me'achag. So now the Rabbanim will also make this extra stringency and say that you cannot be metar it. So he said, Zulo Shamati, I didn't hear. But I heard a similar case where we were machmer even when it's a kedushas peh. The Amar Rav Aryai Amar Rabbi Yochanan Anavim shenitmeu darchan v'achar hektishan taharim, that grapes which became tameh. So if you crush them, you step on them literally, and then you are makdish them, so they're tahar, meaning the outside of the grapes are tameh. And as Rabbi Yochanan said earlier, DAF Lam Gimel and Beis, that the liquid is called. It's like it's guarded inside of it. It's not considered connected to the rest of the grape. So, in the liquid inside remains tar, even though the outside of the grape is tameh. So, if you if you crush it and then you are makdish it, they are a tahor. Heitishan, if you make it kadosh v'achakach darchan and then you crush them, and then they are tame. V'hanavim de kedushas penenu, but we know anavim could only become a kedushas peh because, as Rashi points out, only something which is fit to be put in a clay sharis could become kadosh through a clay sharis. Now, we never did any avodah with grapes. With wine we did, with grapes we did not. So grapes are not fit to be made a kedushas kli. So how did these grapes become kosher in the first place? Only because you designated them as kodesh for the wine. So we see these grapes are kedushas peh. Even so, avu derbanan marla. Still, the Rabban made this chumrah that if you were makdish them first and then you crush them, they remain pasul or tameh. Okay. So Amar Rav Yosef responded. So anavim kamet, you're speaking about grapes. Hacha b'anavim shel shuma skinan. We're not speaking about kodshem. We're speaking about shuma. The kedushas peh didhu kedushas kli damya. And there by shuma, it could only become shuma because you designated it as such by your mouth. And that being the case, the kedushas peh of shuma is on the same level as kedushas kli by kodshem. Okay, so it's not a proof, because if we make a marla, if we make a chumrah by chuma, it will be by kedushas peh, and that's the reason why we're machmer by chuma, because it doesn't have a possibility of becoming a kedushas kli. Okay. So aval hani debay klei peh loy avud rabbanan. Okay. Mala, second. Okay. So the Gemara continues. Aval hani debay klei peh loy avud rabbanan mala. But it could be that these by kodshem, which needs a kli, the by kli, sorry, that it needs a kedushas kli, so it by mouth. So by mouth, so maybe the Rabbanan will not make a marla. I will not make this extra chumrah. Okay. So the Gemara, fine. So it's not a good proof from Truma. So the Gemara says like this. Now we focus on that. What Rav Yechon just said. Darchan, if you crush them, you trample them, right, and then you make them hektish, so they are tar. V'atfilu tuva, even if there's a lot of it. Did Rav Yechon really say this? Rav Yechon, as we had yesterday's DAF, Rav Yechon says, "Anavim shenitmu darchan pachas mikabeya." Grapes which became tameh, you have to crush them less than a kabeya at a time, because if not, as they come out, they'll touch the grape and make all the wine which comes out tameh. So if you want to say, one answer is that here we are referring to less than a kabeya at a time. Another answer is hasam dinagu lahu berishain. There we're speaking about where the grapes touched a rishain, dahavulahu inhu sheni, that they became a sheni, and which in turn will make the wine a shlishi, which we know applies by Truma, which will make it possible. Hacha over here, the nagu b'sheni, it touched a sheni, the havulahu shlishi, which in turn will make it a shlishi, which will not be metame any farther. Yeah. Fine. So Amarava Afana Nami Tanina. We also learned that there's that the Chachamim will make this added chumrah. Will make added chumras by a kedushas peh. V'nasan alav mayim chayim el keli, by the paraduma, where they drew the water for paraduma. It says they will give it over water mayim chayim el keli. That's water from the spring for the meishiloach to a kli shetahe chiyusan b'kli. The drasha is it's el keli, that the chiyusan will be in a kli, meaning that from the time you draw the water it will remain in that kli, and you will not pour it into another kli. It will stay in one kli only. Vinosan alma solution. However, from the word vinosan, we see that even if they're detached, meaning even if they were drawn out of the water and poured into a different kli. Okay, so the question is, we just said from El Kelly that it has to be mechuber. It has to be in the same vessel which you drew it in. Ela mala, rather, it's a chumrah made by the Efer Para, by the Paraduma, and therefore, so hachanami mala, so here too, by chuma, we could also say it's a added chumrah, and that chuma you cannot replant and make it tar. Amar of Tzvi Barashi, afanan namitina, we also learned in the Mishnah, taval ve'olah, someone who was a zav or a zava, suppose it was tame, went to the mikvah and came up. So eichel b'meiser, he could eat meiser. He has status of a tevul yoim, but a tevul yoim is allowed to eat meiser. Herav shimshai, when the sun sets, shkia comes. So eichel b'chuma, so he could eat chuma. B'chuma in b'kachim lai, he could eat chuma, yes, but he cannot eat kachim. So am I? Why is that? Tarhu, he's a tar. Ela mala, rather, it's a mala, it's a added chumrah that a mechusu kippurim, someone who still needs to bring his korban, cannot eat kachim. Hachanami mala. So here too, also we could say the chum added in more chumras, even though there's not speaking about kedushas peh versus kedushas kli, but we're just saying that we see the concept all over that there's added chumras by kachim. Okay, Amar Ravashi Afanan Namitinina. We also learned another chumrah. V'habasar l'rabbeis es ha'itzim u'levayna. We had this back in the first parak. It says v'habasar, that extra vav. It comes to include even eitzim u'levayna, which are not food. Still, we say they get a tuma like food. So eitzim u'levayna b'nei eitmuyininu, are they? Could they really accept tuma? Ela mala. Rather, it's a added chumrah, the chum put by kachim. Hachanami mala here also, so we have reason to say that we put on extra chumras by kachim.